Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today's Eric Larson Day. We're taking a look at Savage Dragon issue number 47, cover dated March 1998. This cover here gives us the who and the where. So the story is going to be taking place in a kind of Germanic Bavarian country, kind of similar to Latveria in the Marvel Universe. And of course this character here, Dread Knight, kind of similar to Doctor Doom, right? Imagine Doctor Doom if you remove the tunic and the cape and the hood that he wears. I'm assuming the armor underneath would look a lot like what Eric Larson is giving us here. The background designs here kind of remind me of that one issue of the Fantastic Four back in the day that Jack Kirby drew on the original kind of Jack Kirby Stan Lee run, where they go to Latveria and you see this type of architecture. So I feel like in this issue, Larson's kind of doing a play on that Kirby stuff that he probably enjoyed as a kid. And there's going to be some stuff about the layouts I'm going to mention once we get into the book that I don't want to forget because they're really important to this specific issue. And yeah, so you've got the team also of SOS. I forget what that stands for exactly, the acronym, but basically the Savage Dragon-led team that is to replace Youngblood in the Image universe, because since Mars Attacks, they're not around anymore. Something happened, or maybe even before that. I'm not quite sure. Anyways, that's how it's explained in continuity. But in reality, of course, Rob Liefeld, that's in around the time that he was pushed out of Image, or he left and they fired him. No one knows exactly. You know, both sides kind of claim different things. I guess the writing was on the wall for both, and they kind of figured it out. But yeah, so there's a bit of real world influence on this idea that now Savage Dragon and SOS are the new Youngblood. Anyways, so the other characters that you see here, you probably mostly recognize from Freak Force, Super Patriot, Dart, and Hortus, I think her name is. Rock is a character that was introduced in the regular series at some point, and Jennifer, I still forget her code name. Larson, of course, still enjoying displaying female characters' nipples. Let's have a look inside. So if you remember real quick from last issue, Star showed up at the end claiming to want to join SOS, the superhero team that again is led by the Dragon. And this one starts with a shocker, because why would Dragon all of a sudden just punch Star like that? Nice big splash page, very Kirby-esque. Those action lines emanating all the way from the 1 point perspective look great. All the rendering, I think, on Star's just classic Larson. Star basically is kind of, again, he's an analog as well, very similar to Spider-Man, so I feel like the anatomy, you know, kind of, although maybe not as flexible as Spider-Man, just has a Spider-Man kind of vibe to it. And just, this is a nice little detail, but, you know, because this isn't a character jumping around or something, or doing something of their own free will, or, you know, their own actions, I like this touch that he did where, you know, the arm's not kind of in a strong position, the hand's kind of limp, right? And the legs here are kind of, I think the term is akimbo, where, you know, if the character is jumping, you might have them both kind of oriented at the same angle, or maybe that side to match this one. But now that they're both going like this, it kind of implies, like in boxing, when a boxer loses his legs and kind of gets wobbly. So some nice little bit of body language on Star there, even though this is a pretty bombastic image. And I mean, that shot of Dragon punching, I think, is just perfect. Really cool. Just a perfect kind of moment. So yeah, because the splash page is a splash page, now we kind of see, I feel like Larson's doing some sort of, I guess, storytelling exercise or exploration, experimentation, call it what you will. But basically what he's doing throughout the rest of this issue is using the 16 panel grid rather than, you know, mostly regular 9-panel grid, and then the 6-panel grid is used as well, right? So usually people go with 6 or 9, then others will go into 16 after that. That's what Eric Larson does throughout this issue. Like I said, the reasons why, I'm not quite sure. He may have had the idea as he started, well, I mean, he's already started doing it on this page, right? So, and there's something about it, you know, that changes a bit, like the storytelling flow a little bit, or at least the feel of it all throughout the issue, that almost gives it an almost kind of, to me, it reminded me of Dark Knight Returns, actually, because I'm pretty sure that Miller's doing the 16-panel grid in there as well. You know, you can still grab a few panels together to make one big one, and there's splash shots and stuff, but I guess just, you know, trying to challenge himself and use a new kind of means of storytelling that I don't think he's, I mean, he may have used before on a page or two or something like that during the run, but I don't feel like I've seen it in Savage Dragon. You know, he's getting close to issue 50, so I have to imagine, and now today he's getting close to issue 300, so you have to imagine that, you know, you got to entertain yourself as well and try different things and again, experiment, which is fine because it doesn't hurt the storytelling flow in any way. And I think also it's kind of convenient because you'll see this page here and this one here, I mean, is basically the same page, right? Here, you know, the door's closed. Rather not the same page. Well, yeah, pretty similar. Yeah, it is the same page. Door closed on this side. You know, boss comes in there, or manager. It's not quite clear exactly how this guy works with SOS. What his kind of actual power role definition is. He then appears in the background on this page as well, right? But basically, you know, short work of this page and probably that page, other than, you know, having to place the lettering and think about that a little bit. Lots of stats, lots of repeated images, you know. The expression might change subtly here and there, but, you know, the rest of the body doesn't really. So these are just quick changes you can do. And I guess it's a quick way, one, to get through 2 pages. You know, as at this point, I still think he's doing pretty much monthly comics in 1998, but also to get a lot of exposition across. So the whole goal with this is to kind of get everyone up to speed on what's going on in just 2 quick pages, right? So on this page, he basically gets informed about, he's talking to Alex on the phone, his friend from Chicago, explaining, you know, how badly that's going, the B story, basically. They know that Horde is the leech guy, I kept forgetting his name, who uses those little leeches to control people, mind control them. They caught him talking to Mendoza, basically the captain who's in charge at the Chicago Police Department. So they know he's crooked, right? So she gives him the lowdown here, and then this guy gives him the lowdown. He wants to go, Dragon wants to go to Chicago, but Boss Man says that, or somewhat manager guy, whatever you want to call him, tells him that he has to go to Lieberheim, which is the stand-in for Latveria that we talked about. So again, Lieberheim definitely evokes kind of Bavarian Germanic roots, right? I mean, why would you have a villain? You know, this is the first time I really kind of clued in on this, that Doctor Doom really is, I guess, meant to be, you know, somewhat reminiscent of Hitler, just in the sense that he's German, right? And when he was created in the early 60s, there's still kind of that huge specter of the Nazis. But I was kind of just mildly thinking it was Eastern European, but I really do think maybe it's a little bit more Germanic and specific as far as the feel and the look of Latveria. And, you know, Larsen call it Lieberheim, just kind of makes me think that that's what he's going for as well, as you'll see in the background designs of the buildings and stuff that are reminiscent of that issue Fantastic Four where they visit Latveria. Dart talking about coming along on the mission, you know, and Dragon at some point, I think, yeah, on the next page here, is kind of hesitant to have Dart come along because he's like, yeah, that's really useful. All you do is throw darts, right? And I mean, I don't think he's necessarily trying to be a jerk, but she doesn't have any real actual superpowers within the context of this world. So I guess he's trying to look out for her, make sure, you know, and it's kind of done on purpose also storytelling wise, because something happens to Dart later on and we'll see her fate when we get there. Always thought it was kind of funny that the Dart earrings that she wears from far away just kind of look like 2 penises hanging from her ear. Just pointing that out. Another example here of getting exposition across what's happened in the past few issues, technically letting Dragon in on it, but the reader as well, right? Which is smart. Another kind of statted page, same drawing of the dragon repeated with shifting, you know, angles here and there. Barbaric talking through the whole time. His face is similar. Expression changes here and there. The hands move a bit. Like just another kind of clever way to stat a page. You know, reuse drawings, get through a page quickly, but still have it be interesting. And I do think this one is more interesting than the other 2 pages because of the last sequence, which at least has some action going for it. Great shoes. Larsen, obviously a great artist. I'll point out that he's doing some pretty cool looking shoes here. Almost kind of like Keith Giffen-esque, I would say. Almost Trencher-like. Inventing a lot of words here. And yeah, just there's something about the repetition, you know, that is available with the 16-panel grid, you know, that's even more so than, you know, the 6 or the 9-panel grid that heightens that sense of repetition even more because there's more of it. Makes sense, right? Just kind of works for that kind of sequence, I think. Works probably the page layout that works best for something like this. So yeah, so he's assembled the team that's going to go out. Still using this, getting a lot of exposition across. I'll just fly through this because it is getting a little bit tedious. And thankfully, he throws in a lot of these kind of dialogue scenes. There's not too much to read. You can get through the pages quickly. I think it's just the right amount of dialogue. And he kind of gets it over with at the beginning of the issue to move into the action sequences later, where then we can see how you use the 16-panel layout much differently, right? We're already getting a hint of it here where, you know, it seems like he's combined down here, like he still has like 12 panels up here, and then he's combined the 4 panels down here for one big image. But obviously, if you pay attention, there's actually 3 full kind of panels here. They're just still split. These 2 are still split within the 4-panel kind of grid, but it is just one image. But I love that kind of stuff. That split image thing, when it's done well, I just think is so great, and it just helps make, you know, one image seem more interesting than it is in a weird way. And I like, again, those little storytelling beats and things. You know, he's aware of the continuity. So since the whole Mars Attacks crossover happened, there's repercussions, right? And I think they've got a fleet or a few of these saucers, so they're still flying around in it, and I think that's pretty cool. It's interesting. You know, does he still have to kind of give them trademark props for using Mars Attacks elements? I don't know. And I love the simplicity of these shots that Erik Larsen is so good at. Just trees in the foreground, the city kind of dashed out, but you've got the Capitol, you've got, whatever this is called, the obelisk. I'm not American. I've been to Washington. I've seen all this stuff. I've walked down there, basically. So I can tell you that this is pretty identifiable, right, as Washington. And the type of, even at this small level, the type of buildings he's given you is like the monument buildings, right, to the presidents, with kind of the Greek Roman-esque column buildings. I don't know what you call those. And then just that extra little bit of, you know, I love clouds. I love drawing clouds. I like looking at clouds generally, just visually. I think there's such a good element to add in, and Larsen does too, so, it seems like, and does it well here. So yeah, here's Lieberheim, right? So again, definitely reminiscent of Germanic kind of traditional buildings, I guess, or more medieval buildings, older buildings, I'll put it that way, maybe the Renaissance. I'm not quite sure. Some more, not clouds now, but smoke in the background, right? Adding some layering, makes it look really cool, gives some movement. And we're now kind of more into the action sequence. As I mentioned before, we're not going to be seeing a lot of those 16-panel pages anymore. So he tilts the angle, and that's kind of an indication too, as things are heating up. So as they approach here, get the cool group shot. Just, you know, this could be an ad, right? And people have often complained about Image Comics doing too many splash pages. Well, you know, Larsen not being the guy, I think, that you can accuse of being guilty of that. Yeah, this is, you know, could have been a splash, but he just did a smaller panel here, and I find it works even more effective and just get a bit more storytelling on the one page. Nice little detail of Kid Adventure, his name is. Just the hands kind of popping out here. Since he's the only flying character, it kind of makes sense, although her arm is popping out there too. I guess just to add some extra layering, right, where he can. Why did he not do it for Zeke, though? Just further in the background. I guess that makes sense, right? So it's like middle ground characters that are allowed to burst out the panel, and background characters are not. Well, no, sorry, Kid Adventure would be considered middle ground. So very small here. I think we'll see them again, but basically he says robots. These are, again, because Dread Knight is basically Dr. Doom, these are the Doom bots, right? And they're very similar in their design, if not their coloring. So Zeke jumps into action, and we get the 4-panel, right, which is 4-panel grid, which could be seen as a combination of all the 16, makes sense. But this is something, you know, even though Kirby, I don't think ever touched the 14-panel grid, he would do the 9, he would do the 6, but he would also do the 4, right, like this configuration. So anytime I see something like that, it reminds me of Kirby. So it works within the confines of being giving it a Kirby feel and action, and also still being part of the 16-panel grid. Just, you know, each character from the team being spotlighted a little bit there in the action and different angles and poses. Very Kirby-esque. And then boom, Dragon confronts Dread Knight. This kind of circular perspective here, very hard to pull off, and this looks great. Larsen, kudos. Just, yeah, kicking ass. He's been drawn, I don't know, has drawn up thousands and thousands of pages by this point. So, you know, the guy's got experience, and, you know, in no ways do I feel are there any amateur kind of ticks still left in there. Everything is just in sort of service of storytelling. Great kinetic energy overall, great kinetic inking line. Just a very moving and energetic comic in general. I feel like he's cut down on the gore as well. I'll just mention that, as opposed to maybe like the miniseries and the first few issues of the regular series. I feel it's been toned down a little bit. There still is some, and we'll see some in this issue, or at least something shocking, which I'll talk about when I get to it. This creature comes back, right? The kind of mummy, Kirby mummy from earlier issues. I just feel like that totally looks like a Kirby design from the 70s, his run on, at DC Comics. We get another one of those Kirby pages here with the 4-panel grid. Again, different angles, different positions for each panel. Lots of action going on. I guess it serves to make the action go by faster or something. It's like almost, it's like you're drawing 4 splash pages, kind of, if that makes sense. And more interesting ways now in the action sequence where he's breaking up the 16-panel grid with one big, almost kind of splash panel here. Pretty much takes up most half of the page, right? And he's got that in full bleed, and then the panels later on top here. And it's when I got to this page here, right? The shocking moment I was talking about, Dart having her legs basically blown off by this beam here. I like the detail, the angle done really well. You can tell that, those aren't coming back. And even just that little bit of the leg that was sticking out past the beam, that's probably going to fall by the wayside there. Just a great shot all throughout. And this is the page layout when I got to this that kind of reminded me of Dark Knight. Dark Knight Returns. Just because, again, because of the 16 panels that he's using, it's almost like, I still read this page and then this page, but when you're reading Dark Knight, I always felt that like it's almost like it's a 2-page panorama, even though it's not like a 2-page splash, right? It's almost, there's a uniformity to both pages that kind of link them together as one image, even though you're going to read it like this and read it like this. So there's something about that just evokes that Dark Knight Returns kind of feel. And, the silhouette shot of Dragon punching away Dread Knight certainly helps, right? That's a very Frank Miller-esque kind of thing there. The close-up of the violence here, very kind of Daredevilish by Frank Miller as well. And basically by, eventually punching the mask off, he realizes that, as he says, he's dead. His armor's running on its own. He's been dead all along. So it was not actually the actual, Dread Knight Doctor Doom character who was creating chaos and pandemonium in Lieberheim, but it was the robot AI, I guess you would call that today, AI controlling armor that he wore. The character had died and the armor had kept going on. Interesting concept. What a great little panel down here too, all silhouette, and just all the characters are there. Simple, effective, a little bit of tree off to the side there. Lovely. More kind of, layouts and stuff that remind me of the Dark Knight Returns layouts. This is a cool shot here. Really fun with Hortus taking on the Doombots. The layering of it, I think, is great, right? Lots of big foreground elements, characters flying off, middle ground, background, really well laid out. We see throughout this issue also the return of the famous star and space Photoshop file, right? If you don't know this, Eric Larsen, for the last 30 years, basically made up one kind of Photoshop document that has this space spatter, I guess is what I'll call it, right? To create that effect of space in the backgrounds. And anytime he needs it, he just goes back and lays it into his pages, which is super smart, right? Again, you're doing regular comics. That just makes total sense, and no one's going to notice unless you know. And even then, it doesn't, in any way take away from the story when you're reading it, right? It's not like he literally copies the same sections. I think he's got a big file he can go grab, probably grabs kind of randomly. Sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're smaller, so. This panel, too, kind of reminded me of Ronin, if you've ever read that, and the depictions of the city of New York. Even though this is an explosion over top of the city here, in Ronin, it's kind of the AI kind of taking over the city. It's definitely the similar composition. And the vertical panel here slightly reminds me of, once the nuclear bomb goes off and Superman's kind of trying to reach for the sky. These kind of layouts and compositions, definitely call back to that stuff for me, at least in my mind. And we're back to a more subdued, dialogue-heavy scene where at this point, there's too much going on in Chicago, so Dragon decides to go and help out. This guy's telling him not to. Don't walk out on me, Dragon. Dragon is gone. And again, just like last issue, kind of ends on a weird point. You know, last issue just, you could say, is the prologue panel to the first splash page of this one, where Dragon punches Star, that we find out is, I don't know if I mentioned it, we find out that it's actually Killcat. I think I did. But anyways, he was posing as Star to try to get into the team. If I said that already, well, there you go. I must be losing my mind already. And so Dragon walks off. So I'm wondering, again, this is kind of an odd point to cut off. I'm wondering if next issue is going to have that same device where the first panel is the next panel that would come after this. I guess we'll find out at next week's review. Let's see if there's anything of note back here. Just like I mentioned last time when we got these character kind of descriptions, I feel like these drawings were done years prior. They're still very Erik Larsen-y, but just slightly cleaner maybe and squeakier than what he's doing now, which I think both are fine, but I actually probably prefer the rougher stuff. But there's a slight aesthetic difference that you can kind of see here. Getting a lot of pages to this guy here. Not quite sure. I read the first one, didn't really enjoy it, so not into this kind of, just not my bag. Oh yeah, I talked about this cover already. Really cool. Good use of silhouette. Anyways, guys, that's my review of Savage Dragon issue number 47. If you are still watching and subscribed, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you being there. If you are watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second for you, and it really helps the channel out, helps us grow, and helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books just like we are. Everyone out there, thanks again for watching, and have yourselves an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13. 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby. Like!